Yeah, and if we're not happy, it brings us on to our next question. Has Conte been backed? Is he happy enough with the transfer window, with the quality of signings that we're bringing in to convince him to sign on that dotted line? Start with you, Dave.
No, we haven't done anywhere near enough to do it. Look, a manager like Conte, he's Italian, and we all know they pride themselves on defence. I mean, he's looking at that back line right now. He's not signing on the dotted line, and that's what this January was all about. We failed to get the negotiations done over the World Cup, so this January was all about doing enough to persuade him to stay. Me personally, I think we're in a marriage of convenience until the end of the season. That's what I'm at. I don't think Conte wants to give up the high wages that he's on and what else is really out there for him to go to right now. Tottenham have right now, because if they got rid of Conte, there'd be more and more bodies at them protests. So I think it's a marriage of convenience to the end of the season. I don't believe we have done enough. If we were going to do enough, we would have been able to get it done over the World Cup, because they obviously couldn't convince him by what we told him we were able to do by January, because he would have signed on the dotted line. And at the end of the day, we just haven't done enough. I think, look, yes, we've strengthened the squad by bringing in Porro and Danjuma. I think we're stronger coming out of the window than what we were going into it. Mm-hmm. But my point is, we're still one or two position stores, still one or two signings short, and that is going to come back to haunt us. We're going to get to a semi-final of the FA Cup. We're going to come up against some of the big four teams still in the league, and we'll do the job against the rest of the teams below us. But it's the teams that are in and around us where that centre-back, that quality centre-back makes a difference. Having a goalkeeper that's in form, a bit of confidence, that's where it makes the difference. And we don't have that. And last year, me, guys, I'm the most optimistic. Everyone was sitting here telling me, Dave, you're talking absolutely baloney. We ain't going to get top four. But we did. But this year, I do not see it. I look at all the other teams that have strengthened around us. I just do not see us making top four. I think we'll fall short. And that's like Brains are saying, like they've got analytics guys in there, constantly sitting on computers all day, checking up stats of players and identifying players. But am I surprised we haven't got in a centre back when our scouting department is in absolute turmoil? That's what Paratici is trying to do, bring the scouting department up to date and up to scratch and everything else. No wonder why we're always coming out missing, in positions. And because there's some of them positions, even if you don't have the big money, there are players in and around leagues in Europe that you can get that's better than what we got. That's an upgrade. But we don't seem to have that scouting infrastructure. We don't seem to have that scouting network built up across these sort of countries. And it comes back to haunt us every window.
But with us kind of like improving window on, window out, like I was talking about before, since Paratici has come here, the Painfield rebuild has started. Do you think Conte can see that there's something building here? And would he want to stick around for that, Brains?
Man, I mean, this... Oh... if I was Conte and your worth, I could imagine him. He's such a passionate guy. I can imagine him, a part of him wanting to stay, because he can see that when it works, it really does work, and it's quite beautiful. You can't tell me the way he celebrates when we come back from, when we score some goals. You're seeing some of the best responses that I've ever seen out of him on the touchline. He's kind of removed the whole kicking things over and being really violent. He's removed that from his touchline game, and he just looks so passionate sometimes. So I think this could have been, and this could be the club that really grips at a manager like his heartstrings. You can't go your whole career just 1 season, 2 seasons at places. You want a project, and I think he came here because he wanted a project. I think he wanted to struggle. I think he wanted it, but you want to struggle with the club together. You want to have them struggle. This is our problem. You tell me we can't afford things. Okay, fine. But I tell you we need this. So come find a middle ground. You can't give me Bastoni, then give me Hincapi. Let's go out and find and solve the problems together. For me, I think, do I think it's enough? I think I think if we did something magical to playing and form wise towards the end of this season, I think he might just get caught up in the buzz of it. If and it's a massive if, because if he believes twice that he's got, if they tell him again this next window, this is the one we're really going to back you in, then it's like they can't keep doing that. They've done that to Harry Kane for so many seasons, you know. But if it's a case of like he sits with Kane and like and they feel like attack wise, we could actually have like like an elite unit, then I can see him going for it if he's promised that he can get the not even like a type of that he can just get Bastoni. I think if you said to him, we're going to bring Bastoni in, I think he'd be like, all right, I'll stay. Like if he knows he's going to have quality that he absolutely 100% believes can partner with Romero, and he can have more strategies, he can have more systems. He doesn't just have to rely on a 5-4-1. You know, like I can imagine him being a little bit embarrassed that he has to keep coming out with that as a defensive strategy. You know, so I think if they, it's who knows what's going on behind the scenes, but it doesn't look for me that we've done anywhere near enough to keep him happy.
Do you know what the sad thing is, though, boys? Is like I actually believe we've made a much better go of it than what we did under Jose Mourinho. I think we have tried to do it, but mistakes from previous years, from the Jose years and the Nuno time, have come back to haunt us. And we knew we had 18 months to get the squad right, to be able to, you know, prove to this guy. But unfortunately, because of hangers on like Dyer, Davies, Sanchez, people like that, and we haven't been able to get rid of them, to bring in transfer fees for them as well, which might have been able to free up more money to get that extra player over the line, this, that, and the other. But the sad thing is, previous mistakes have come back to haunt us and impact this time under Conte. When they brought in Conte, they should have had a full reset and been ruthless with the squad as well. But they haven't wanted to take the hit on some of these players, and that's been the problem. And it's just sad. It's sad that previous failings have come back to haunt us, even though I believe we have tried to make a go of it under Conte.
Sim, what are you feeling? Has Conte been backed?
I think there are signs for me that but the hierarchy are listening to Conte on his suggestions, in my opinion. The fact that they've shipped Doherty out on loan on deadline day. They've shipped Spence out on loan on deadline day. They shipped Brian Hill out on loan on deadline day. Tells to me that Conte has made suggestions about who he does and doesn't want in the squad, and they're trying to listen
Doesn't
to
want
him.
any young people.
Yeah, basically anyone under the age of 28. Get
Well,
get
to
him
be
out.
fair,
No,
though, he likes Pape Matar, you know. Pape Matar, he given chance to. He doesn't want to see Pape Matar go. So
No, like Doherty's experience, like and clearly, I don't think he likes him as much as Emerson Royal. I think there are signs that they're starting to listen to him. Have they done enough? Have they done enough this window to tell Conte, look, we truly believe in you in this project and we're going to go forward? Probably not. Although, from the Tottenham hierarchy standpoint, like if you're not comparing to other clubs, if you're looking just from like how they've previously acted to how they're acting now, you could argue they're leaning towards more of collaboration with Conte than maybe they have with other managers, compared like in terms of listening to what he says. But if you're comparing the current hierarchy to what other clubs are doing, when you're talking about backing a manager, it just isn't on the same level. When you're talking about the teams we're competing with, Chelsea,
look at Arteta is the prime example.
Yeah, Arteta. You look at Man United. Like today, Eriksen gets a big injury, and they go.
Sabitzer straight away.
Yeah,
no questions
away.
asked. Just go get him.
Yeah, imagine we got a big injury on deadline day. You think we're gonna go and do what Man United did? Absolutely no chance we would. We would get a deal like that done.
See your footage from your time at the Tottenham Hotspur today, and you'll get a phone call.
Literally, I have to go to the stadium with my kit on underneath my clothes just in case.
But a part of me also thinks, look, as much as we need a centre-back, 100%, the centre-backs we have are not good enough. I think Conte needs to show a bit more when it comes to getting more of a level performance out of the centre-backs. And I think there may be with recent defensive performances away from home, hopefully are starting to get back to the level that we were at the end of last season. But he showed at the end of last season he can get performances out of some of these players that this season we just haven't been able to do. So I think for these next 6 months, he needs to show again that he can, on some occasion anyway, get a level of performance he was getting out of them last season, to give that hierarchy full belief that this manager is still the manager to completely trust. Because I do believe with the form that we've shown defensively over the past couple months, with the fact that we've conceded 2 goals for the fact that we've conceded 2 goals in 9 of the last 10 games, the fact that we're one of the worst defensive sides statistically in goals conceded wise in the league. I think we're 15th or something in the league. That has eroded, rightly or wrongly, that has eroded some of the trust from the hierarchy as to whether this project is one that they fully believe is worth sticking by. Now, I believe Conte can get a high level performance from these centre backs, in my opinion. Not to say that means that these centre backs are good enough and going forward they can be the answer. But he has shown that he can get a high level of performance out of these centre backs.
If he plays one game a week and he's out of all the tournaments.
Yeah, but he has shown that he can previously get a high level of performance out of these centre backs than they're currently showing right now. And he needs to be able to prove to the hierarchy that, not for me, but I'm talking from a hierarchy standpoint, he needs to show them that he can get back to that level of coaching to give them more confidence that if he does give them, that if they do spend big on a centre-back, they are going to really push to the next level rather than it be something that fizzles out very quickly if they do go fully backing this manager. And I believe they should. I believe they should back him in the summer, like with high-level centre-backs and with high-level players in that position that can really take this team on to the next level. But I think the fact that we've stumbled so badly over November, December and early January, that has caused some hesitation, I believe, from this hierarchy as to whether this project is something worth pursuing or not, or whether it's just going to be cutting our losses in the summer, which has worried me, to be honest. We need to start putting in much better defensive displays, in my opinion.
Are you telling me that it's flipped a switch, and you think that now Conte needs to prove himself to the board as opposed to it being the other way?
I think not totally, but somewhat, yes. So I think
it's ridiculous if it's true.
I think at the start of the season, look, put it this way. I think at the start of the season, right, it was pretty much the whole season was we need to convince Conte to stay, right? It's
exactly the same.
I think as the season's gone on, the dial has changed a little bit to with the form degrading over November and December, and with a lot of fans criticising Conte and stuff like that, and a lot of question marks with the consistently poor performances and a lot of issues not being solved. The dial for the hierarchy has switched to Conte has to start showing a bit as well, in my opinion.
Do you know what that's like? That's like saying, all right, Conte, we're booking you on a little trip and we're hiring you 3 blind men to show you around, to be your tour guides, and then being like, hold on a minute, they've been gone for 25 hours. What's happened to them? Why are they lost? Conte, you are sacked for being lost. You know what I mean? It's like you got to give them people that can see if you want to complete a journey. So it's like they can't like treat him like this, give him this squad, not really back him in the way of like give Conte what Conte needs to build a Conte team, and that always starts from 2 solid centre backs or 3 solid centre backs. So it's like you can't. They for me, they've got nothing to complain about. If you haven't done that, if you're saying Conte is going to come in his club, and his defenders that he's going to mostly work with are Eric Dyer, Davies, and Sanchez, it's like you can't say nothing until we will, as a fan base, we will not know what Tottenham's pure capability is until everyone that has suffered losing the Champions League run in close coming second a couple of times. Everyone from the past who's like come close and lost and burned out, and that loser mentality is in them until they're gone. Bar Kane, because I think he's the kind of the special player. But until all that kind of trash is gone, we will not know what Spurs can really do, no matter who's the manager. So if you are going to put Conte in, you're gonna have to give him the sauce and let him cook.
Yeah.
You know.
No, you can't polish a turd, right? How many managers are good? How many managers have tried? How many managers have the hierarchy been like, you got to prove yourself to us. You got to prove yourself to us. They keep getting burned every single 18 months with these same defenders in, week out. Yes, for a certain amount of time, if the conditions are right, the manager can get them to form to a good level. But ultimately, they're always going to be reverting back to type. And until the hierarchy give the players that the manager needs, the same results are going to keep appearing.
I don't disagree with that. What I'm saying is Conte last season, for the last 6 months, was getting good level of performances out of some of these centre backs.
Why is that? It's because the certain conditions were absolutely
that's
right
fine.
at the time.
That's fine, but he still was. That's at the end of the day, he still was getting good level performances out, and our defensive record was decent. Now, what has happened is Conte, and I think everyone has shown after last summer we didn't go. We thought we could get away with not getting a centre back, and what's been shown is if you rely on these centre backs for like consistently to take you to the next level, they're going to let you down, right? They're not going to. Then these aren't the centre backs that you should be relying on. However, our defensive record being 15th in the league should not be the case, in my opinion. We should not be that low down when it comes to goal conceded. Now, I'm not saying Conte has to turn these defenders in. Let me just one second, Braids. I'm not saying Conte has to turn these defenders in the second half of the season into like elite centre backs, and we need to get to be the best defensive record again. But he needs to show that he can get a better level of performances out of these centre backs for the second half of the season, just to show that these players are still buying into him, to give that hierarchy the assurance that he still has everyone on side and that this is a project that has 100% security. Just because I guess there is a concern that the fire has burnt out a bit, and are these players still buying into what we're trying to do? And the defensive record would suggest that there is we are struggling in that aspect. So I'm not saying he needs to get these defenders to turn into prime Maldini for the second half of the season, but he does need to get a better defensive record and a better showing than we did show in the first half of the season.
Go on, Dave.
I would argue that the board actually are well aware of the problem at centre back. Why do you think they switched tact after Pochettino to Jose Mourinho? Because they didn't want to go and spend big money on the defence. They backed Sanchez, they backed Dyer, and they backed their investments. They taught Jose Mourinho, best defensive manager in world football, he'll come in and he'll be able to make them a cohesive unit. Because the problem wasn't scoring goals on the Poch, it was keeping them out. Now, look, Jose can only do it for so long, like we're seeing with Conte. But again, that defence fell off a cliff. Let's not forget how catastrophic they were against, and they were under Jose Mourinho, that centre-back partnership with Dyer and Sanchez, when Mourinho ended up getting sacked. So then they said, okay, Jose Mourinho, a bit too defensive, too mean, doesn't fill the players with confidence. We'll go and get Nuno, who is defensive first, but has some attacking patterns. He might be able to do better with this back line. Then they realised, oh, hang on a minute, back four isn't working. So we know it's not good enough, still haven't invested properly. So we'll go and get a manager that plays a back five, that puts an extra centre-back in there to shore it up. And this has been the problem. They know it's not good enough, but they keep sacking every manager based on the amount of because what's costing every manager their job is that back line, is the amount of goals we concede. And the problem is they just won't take no for an answer. They don't understand that these players don't have the mentality or the consistency on the football pitch to keep up with the demands and the rigors of playing professional football at a high standard at a club like Tottenham Hotspur in the Champions League. They do not have it, and the board won't take no for an answer. They just won't. And they need to understand this.
Those players are the poison in the chalice for any manager taking it on. Like, I think if you convince any Prem team to buy right now, Davies or Dyer or Tanganga or Sanchez from, if you, and I'm telling, and you probably won't, because I don't think anyone would want them in the Prem. So I don't even think they're Prem level, because I don't think anyone would touch them. But if you convince them, you're probably looking at about 15, 16, 17. You're looking at down there. So that's why our defensive record is down there, because that is the level of those players. And you can't just put one, and you obviously, Romero's not been fully fit. We've had a bad run with injuries and stuff. But I think those defenders are worth that. Like last season, remember the game was at Leeds? when I can't remember if it was Jack Harris who was through on goal, and Davies just comes out at the top end of you, just comes out bang, and like makes this unbelievable clearance. But that's Davies playing in good weather, who's only in one competition, who's got his legs, who is in this run of like, oh wow, I'm having the best run of my career, half of a season. You know, like he was in full confidence. You can't ask a player like that to go for a whole season and be the left-sided centre back. I just don't think it's realistic. And I think Dyer has had legendary negative stats for season after season. He's the kind of player who Mourinho was taking him off after 30 minutes. Like, that's how low quality a player we're talking about. I think I consider Dyer one of the biggest con men in football. Like, at one point he had a semi-decent little run, but then it was gone. Like, whatever he was on at that point, it changed. Like, and for me, it's like the amount I've stopped doing it, but I used to keep little stats and counting my own little stats on how many times Dyer would make me want to commit suicide by watching his performances. That's how bad he was. And so as a fan, like, we're stuck with this guy. And I can't understand how any defender, any coach would appreciate that situation, you know?
Yeah, look, I completely agree. And to think about the hierarchy questioning this manager makes my mind blow. I mean, how this hierarchy can ever question any manager again with how they've treated managers over the years is crazy to me, especially when every single manager fails with the same exact players. It
wouldn't surprise me if Sim's right and they think like that. That's another shock.
I think they are, Si. I think they are. I do think a bit like that, in my opinion, because they're worried. They're worried that we know the reputation of Conte to stay at clubs in a short period of time, and are they worried? If you look at our defensive record, 21 goals conceded in the last 10 games, are they worried? Like, is the system still working? Are they really still fighting for the manager? And Conte said himself, to be honest, that a big part of why the defending hasn't been as good is because they've lost a bit of that fight, that bit of aggression. And now I'm not saying that we need to go and keep 10 clean sheets in a row, but we can't go in the next 10 games conceding 21 goals. And I think Conte does have the capability to turn that around a bit and improve that. And I think if he can show that even with these set of defenders he can still turn it around, then that should give the hierarchy all the evidence they need that this is the way forward.
But the fact of the matter is, before we started keeping all those clean sheets last season, it was the same kind of form, the same kind of defence when we were playing in Europe, when we were playing in the cup competition, when we were playing in 2-3 games a week. It was exactly the same as we're seeing now. And I think once Spurs start exiting out the cups and a few competitions and do go back to one game a week, you'll see the same. You'll see the same as we saw at the back end of last season. And until we get better defenders in, that's the max you're going to see from these defenders.
So are we going to concede 21 goals in the next 10 games?
In the next 10 games.
That's what we've just
depends
done.
on the schedule, but it could be.
But the problem is, Conte's relying on guys. Conte's relying on guys that have a huge say and a huge sway in around Tottenham Hotspur because of how long they've been here. You know, we can't forget Ben Davies went and spoke to Levy on the players' behalf to get Nuno sacked. The only way this board would be questioning Conte is if they're listening to some of these players. But why would you listen to some of these players when they've been responsible for getting Jose Mourinho sacked, Nuno sacked? And now the same things are going on now that was going on around the same time all these other managers are getting sacked.
Don't forget Poch as well.
Pochettino as well. You know, they were fed up with Poch's training methods. You know, Jose Mourinho is too mean. He wouldn't talk to me in a bed at night and read him 3 Bears in the Goldilocks. Nuno, he was too cold. And then you've seen reports come out here that, the training routine, it's too much of the same. It's like, well, what is good enough for you? What is good enough? And this is the problem. Some of these guys have been here that long. They have too much of a sway around the club. And they also have an influence on the culture that's in and around the club. And until they go, you won't see the ups and downs at Tottenham Hotspur go either. They have to go. They're a huge problem all around. But not only that, they're also stopping youngsters from coming through, some of these guys, because they're blocking up the pathway. We know they're not good enough. They let us down time and time again through moments throughout the season that end up making us sit there trophyless season in, season out. And you know, they're still allowed to, we still persist with them. We still think they're good enough. The problem is they're a huge problem around this club, being here too long, and the culture will not change until they're shipped out and turfed.
Absolutely.
That makes me wonder, Ben, that makes me, and Sim, that makes me wonder, like, after that discussion we've just had and how clear it kind of seems to us, and then also like what the potential kind of dealings between Conte and the board are, then it just like blows my mind. Is like, okay, well then what is the strategy here? Because we've just let go of 4 youth players, like, well, 1 older one and 3 younger players, and we've just brought in an attacker and a right wing back, and that's great, but we've got a lot of attack. Like, what is the plan here? Like, our problem's been defense, and we're, you know, and all the other rumors were still about trying to bring in another attacker. You know, like, so I just don't get it.
Brains, it's the same plan as every window. Next window is going to be the one.
Is there a complete breakdown in communication from Conte and the board, and even the recruitment?
I don't think so. Just because I'm looking at what we've done this window, and yeah, we didn't get a centre back, but the in terms of you know, taking Doherty out and bringing in Porro and getting in a lot more offensive wing back, I think that's probably something that Conte definitely suggested he needs. He needs a wing back who can dribble, who can cross, and we need someone who can play on that right hand side, who can perform those duties. And at the moment, we don't have one. And considering at the start of the window we had 3 wing backs, and we've taken out 2 and switched 1. It does suggest to me that there has to be some sort of communication on that part to me.
But considering what David said, because I remember that Conte did say that, like, after the Arsenal game, he said we cannot play high pressing, attacking football.
Correct.
Because we don't have and I think he said the characteristic of the centre back. We don't have the necessary characteristic of a centre back. That is loud and clear, that we do not have capable, strong enough line of 3 that can push up and hold a team at the halfway line. Now, for me, that is like, okay, he is saying loud and clear that we need more capable centre backs. And then, so what the board do? Okay, cool, we'll go and get you Danjuma, and we'll get you a wing back. And I love the wing back. We can play fluid Conte ball on one side, but if you're still having the midfielders are handcuffed, you're making the spread of the pitch. The gaps are too big. Teams like Arsenal will carve you open all day long. You create bigger passing channels for them to carve you open. And that's the thing that blows my mind. I just don't understand the strategy. Like, if you got Danjuma and Porro and one, even Sabriani, like a player to just fill in, to be a little bit more stronger, to come in on rotation as a centre back, I would have been like, oh, okay, there's a plan here.
The thing is, though, Brains, it costs more to fix up that back line. You're talking 2, 3 centre backs. You're also talking right wing back and a goalkeeper. So it's easier just to go, fuck defending. Let's go and outscore teams. And that's looked like what we've done, bringing in Porro and Danjuma. It's like, well, it's cheaper to fix these issues in a January window than it is to fix the biggest problems in the back line. So we're just going out trying to outscore teams.
You can't hire Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte and have that mentality, can you?
No, I agree. You can't.
You can't. Yeah. That's what I mean about
looks like what we're doing.
That's what I mean about a breakdown in communication. So it's almost like, do you think Conte? Because I've heard him say it. Do you think Conte doesn't want, and also this getting rid of 4 to bring in 2, do you think Conte doesn't want a bloated squad? He doesn't want, don't just go and get me like a 25 million defender. Don't make fun of me. You know, like I can imagine him saying, look, if you don't want to pay in this window 60 million for a defender, don't get me a defender. Like, I'll work with this. I can imagine him saying that. If anything that he's saying about the defense, I can imagine him saying that, because he probably doesn't want a slap in the face to go and get another problem, another player that he can't play. So I can imagine him saying, look, if you're not going to bring in 60, 70 million defender, I don't want any defender. That's the only reason I can maybe possibly see that he might even be okay with a defender not coming in.
Well, I think the general consensus is then Conte has not been backed.
No, I don't think he has been. I don't think he's been backed. But I also think we need to show a better defensive record than we showed in the first half of the season. And I think we can.
Well,
I really do
that's
think
it.
we can.
That's fair
You
enough.
always do.
That's fair enough.